Hey now, and welcome to episode 35 of the Help Find the Others podcast. If you've been here all along, welcome back. But if this is your first time listening to us, welcome. I'm your host, Ruben. And as always, my co-host Stan is on the line. How you doing, man?
Doing great.
So this is our first, we've been talking about it for a while, but this was our first episode 2 of a guest, or part 2 of a guest. And we've been talking about wanting to circle back and revisit some of the people that we've talked to. And so this episode featured Tyson. And I didn't look. Did you look? It was about a year ago that we talked to him before, right?
Yeah, I went back to find his Instagram handle, and I definitely think it was one of the first 10 episodes that we did.
Yeah. But it stuck with me as one of my favorites. I've talked to him since then as well, and messaged him and stuff. And he's a great dude. This discussion, we just kind of let it flow, and it ended up, I think, being our longest episode ever.
Yeah. It was cool too, because going into it, I guess I had an expectation of how it would go, and just being like a catch up on his bus and a catch up on his psychedelic group that he has conversations with. But I'm glad that it kind of shattered any expectation, and it just went into more of who he is and, what he stands for, and just getting to know him more. And we did touch on those other topics as well, but it was cool to see how over time, how, we all have evolved. And it was a good reminder of that.
Yeah, and it made me realize, we do need to reach back out to everyone that we've had on, and just kind of do this, that it can make for really good episodes. So anyway, without any further ado, here's Tyson. Hey, Tyson, thanks for coming back on, man. We've been wanting to kind of circle back around and talk to some old guests and kind of, have a round 2 conversation. And, you're the first guest we're coming back to. So thanks for coming back on, man.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm definitely glad to be back on here. How have you guys been?
Yeah, we've been good, man. I mean, we've been, plugging along with the podcast and we've been like I said, we're circling back around to old guests. We've been wanting to do it for a while, but we've just had so many emails, and every time I'm about to have someone else on, we're like, oh man, this person sounds like they'd be an awesome guest. So we've been kind of lucky to have some really great guests on, and I've been really proud of, our last several episodes.
Yeah. I have to confess, unfortunately, I have not been listening lately. I have my podcast listening has kind of dropped off, and we've been going through a crazy busy time lately, so I haven't been doing much listening to anything.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I listen, it's funny. So I started a new job, and I kind of work by myself on my own schedule, and I listen, I'm just listening to podcasts all the time. I listen to music every now and then. I can't stop listening to music, but, I listen to probably 6 or 8 hours of podcasts a day. And it's funny because I'm soaking in all this information. And then I also have my own podcast. So I'm, kind of processing it and regurgitating everything back in my, kind of thing. But I'm always talking to friends and oh, you should check out this podcast, check out that podcast. And they're like, dude, I listen to 2 podcasts a week. I don't have time to just sit there and do that. And, I forget that this is kind of the podcast world just intrigues me right now. And I soak it up,
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at the last time that we spoke. I was listening to tons of podcasts, along with lots of Terrence McKenna, which I still listen to him a lot. I not nearly as much. I seem to go through phases with it, and so yeah, I haven't been listening to that, but I have gone. Now my big thing, this isn't new. It's always been music, but now I'm way back into just nonstop listening to music. Huge. I can't remember where exactly what was happening the last time that we talked, but I believe this has happened since then that I've become a huge Pink Floyd fan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I just kind of I don't know. I'd always wanted to get into them. I'd always known that they were so legendary. I mean, as far as whether you like them or not, it's like you might not like Elvis, but you respect for what he is in the music world.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing with Pink Floyd, but I could never find that like sort of thing that grabbed me and pulled me in. And I listened to a live performance of theirs, and when David Gilmour went off on one of his solos, and it just clicked in that moment. I just got it. And that sent me down the rabbit hole, and I've just been listening to their entire catalog pretty obsessively.
Oh, well, shit, man. Yeah. Dude, I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. In fact, so I got a tattoo this year of Prince is my like one of my musical icons, and that I like know his whole catalog and stuff. So I got the artist symbol, his symbol. So I got that on my left shoulder, and my next tattoo probably next year I'm going to get like the Dark Side of the Moon prism on my right. So like I've always, when people are like, what kind of music do you like? I'm always like, fall somewhere in the middle of Pink Floyd and Prince. And, that's kind of how I always explain that. And even my screen name on our Discord server is Echoes of Purple, because that's like a reference to
both of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so, man, that's awesome. I had no idea.
One of my guitars is I kind of put it together, but it's the black Strat like of David Gilmour's. And
I mean, you didn't just buy one of his guitars when he auctioned them off a couple months ago?
I tried, but I got severely overbid.
Yeah, that was insane. He auctioned off his whole collection and said that this was a great investment opportunity because he's probably going to want them back in a few years.
Yeah, well, it's kind of cool. I like that. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the owner of the Indianapolis Colts is kind of like this, like sex, drugs, and rock and roll billionaire. Like it's kind of funny. He's had like DUIs and stuff like that, and like he's been in trouble with drugs and everything. But anyway, he's big into buying like artist guitars, and he has Jerry Garcia's guitar. And he put out a thing that like once he won it, he was playing it and he opened it up to look at it. And there was like a bag of weed in the guitar.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him now and I see what you're saying. He kind of has a John McAfee sort of vibe to him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
just the crazy over the top billionaire.
Yeah. I think there was something, he got caught with like coke and stuff like that, and the NFL was gonna like try to make him go to rehab, and he was like, no, and just didn't, and like they just didn't do anything. But yeah.
Speaking of getting caught with drugs, did you guys hear the whole thing around this whole Juice World rapper?
I had never heard of him until he died. But my son was like distraught over him dying, and then he's been watching all these YouTube videos about how he faked his death, and he's like, no, listen, it's like it's all about the numbers, and it's like he goes through all these numbers. It's all from this YouTube video. But
no, I've seen the video. It's actually like it's sort of eerie. He says there's a couple lyrics where he says he's looking like John Lennon, and John Lennon died on the same day that he died on. He said, what else? He said that his ultimate goal would be to get overly famous, shine for a few years, and then fake his own death. And he said this in an interview back in like 2017. And then he also, there's a bunch of, in one of his songs, he says about, the 27 rule, the real rock stars never live past 27. In one of his songs, he says, screw that, we're not making it past 21. And he died like the week of his 21st birthday. But the whole thing that's come out after like the first couple of days was crazy that he got caught. Essentially, it was it was suicide. He got caught with 80 pounds of weed on his private jet and just took all the drugs in his pocket, and basically because he knew he was facing like 35 years in prison.
Huh.
even though it's about to be legal in the state.
Yeah, I know,
Well,
yeah.
but we're talking like massive pounds of weed on his private jet going from state to state. Like they're not going to let that one slide.
Dude's from my hometown.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he went to the public school that was Homewood.
Do you know his music? I had never listened to it.
I mean, I knew of him. Like, I'm a really, really big hip hop head, so I definitely knew of him. But like, to me, that genre kind of all sounds the same, and it's like spearheaded by Post Malone.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody to me sounds like Post Malone in that little sphere.
Yeah, who I do like, actually. I kind of like Post Malone, and I think he's such an absurd character. I'm like,
and he even says he's like, don't call me a rapper. He's like, I'm not a rapper. He's just a musician. Because if you go back to his old YouTube videos and stuff, he's singing old country songs and all that. It's just he got famous. He got all of his attention for the one rap song that he did, the White Iversons, I believe was the first one. Yeah, and so that's now he's like a hip hop artist, but. Yeah, he like doesn't like to be called a rapper because he does, and I mean I get it. He's just a musician that happened to rap, but he does other things too.
Yeah, I've seen him playing guitar and singing country songs and stuff. I mean, he's really good. He's talented. But yeah, I've never heard of the Juice Wrld guy. But I'm not like some old guy who's like, I can't stand it rap. But like, I honestly, it's like rap was better in the 90s, and I hate to be that old guy, but it's like there's nobody out now that does what Wu-Tang did, or like is speaking stuff like Tupac and Nas did. Like there was like these visionary artists back then that like there's very few people other than like Chance the Rapper and
Donald Glover,
Lamar. Like there's those kind of the hip hop that gets labeled as like crossover almost, or whatever. But the stuff, it's like, and I try to influence my son by playing that kind of stuff because he's just all into Juice Wrld, and
it's the world of SoundCloud. I mean, we're seeing what it was all SoundCloud rappers, and then they got famous, and now they're actual rappers. And I kind of. Once I got into electronic music, I pretty much left the entire hip hop world behind. And I still listen some, like Rick Ross, stuff like that. But then when this whole quote unquote mumble rap thing came around, I checked out completely. I was like, I literally can't understand what you're saying. You're not pronouncing your words. And it drove me nuts. So I left. And I'm seeing, it's weird to see a parallel in music between something like mumble rap and something like the kind of dark years of like dubstep, where it got obnoxious and annoying, but because it went through that phase, it's been sort of reincorporated into like trap music and some actually really cool electronic songs now that have that dubstep vibe to it. And I'm seeing a lot of stuff coming from the sort of mumble rap, the sound of it, the beats of it, into actual dope songs now where these guys can actually have a flow and they're actually like real rappers now. And yeah, so it seems like hip hop was going through a transition period for the last like 5 years.
Yeah. I definitely like, and I kind of knew it was going on. I heard it here and there with like Flying Lotus and like Kid Cudi and stuff like that. But one night when I was tripping, and actually, dude, I think it was the night I did Pharmawaska, and I think I'd like messaged you just because it was like late, and I'm like, who do I know on the West Coast? and like you like messaged me back in the morning like, oh, I'm sorry, man, I was asleep or whatever it was. But Stan was up, and he sent me a video of ASAP Rocky's LSD, and that fucking like totally killed like every negative shit I was having, because I was like, ooh, this is cool. But it was also like the video was like, oh, they made this for like me right now. Like ASAP gets it. And so it's cool. I love the psychedelic like culture infused into hip hop that's going on, that like there's every time I hear of an artist rapping about acid or shrooms or DMT, I'm like, I'm going to listen to that song at least. And like, it's pretty cool.
It's weird. Yeah. It's weird hearing, I guess this is like the second psychedelic revolution. This is where first in the 60s it all burst onto the scene, and now it's sort of working its way into just main culture. It's like an acceptable thing to talk about now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Being at a family gathering and openly telling them, I have a psychedelics discussion group and we meet every week on my bus, and they're like, wait, I'm sorry, say that again? Like, you have a they're like, this is, and then they're just nobody says a word, and he's just like, what a time to be alive. Like, just that you can do that now. And which is, I mean, it's what we need. This is the impetus that we need to move forward and figure out so much of our society and how to fix so many things that are wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it's, I've gotten more and more as the podcast has gone along. I've gotten more and more okay with like telling people, friends and family, like, if they're talking about podcasts, I'll be like, yeah, I do a podcast, or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, and when they ask what it's about, I'm like, drugs and stuff. And then like,
such a great way to break the ice.
Yeah, because it's like they're either gonna go whatever, and then I know it's not worth like following up on that, or they'll like what kind, if they want more, then there's that opening for like, oh well, I talk about psychedelics and cultural revolution and whatever, and
yeah, and it's like Terrence said, that if we want this to quit being a taboo topic, we have to stop treating it like it's taboo. If you just start acting like this is an okay thing to talk about, it becomes an okay thing to talk about. And there is a awkward transition there where you just got to break down some of these barriers. But God, if anyone's good at just bulldozing their way through a conversation, I'm great for that.
Yeah. My oldest brother is getting my dad the Michael Pollan book for Christmas. So that, that'll be a fun Christmas morning. I was like, dude, you got to tell me when he's about to open that up. I'm about to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, like my dad is the farthest away from that ideology. So, but he loves Michael Pollan. So, I mean, he'll respect it.
Will he give it a chance?
Oh yeah. He reads, he's an incredibly fast reader. So he could probably read that book in 2 nights. But I think that the hook of it is that he loves Michael Pollan's previous work.
Oh,
and
well,
I think that is going to be like what gets him to crack the book open. You know what I mean? And once he cracks the book open, I think from that point on, it's kind of a smooth ride.
Yeah, I gave that,
but there's no guarantee that he'll be opened up to that ideology for sure. But he'll read it, he'll process it.
Well, yeah, and that's what's important with that book is like, you'll at least come away from it like, but it still may not interest you, but you're gonna respect it a little more for people that it does interest, I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
But I gave that book to my dad and he fucking lost it.
Oh,
and didn't read it. And I'm like, God damn, it's like a $50 book. And like, I want you to fucking read it, and like,
no, I had that happen with a coworker. She wanted to hear what I was listening to on my headphones, and she like loved it. And I ended up getting her as Secret Santa that year. So I bought her the CD, and like 2 weeks later, I was like, oh, so did you get a chance to listen to it? What'd you think? And she was like, actually, I lost it when I was moving. So yeah, I don't really know where it is. And like, it wasn't so much that she lost it. It was just like, I don't know. It's just gone. It's just like, she didn't care. And I was like, oh, well, that was this was something that was important to me, that I was like, it's one of my favorite albums, and I was hoping to share it with you. And just the nonchalantness was just kind of like, oh, well, okay. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and with my dad, I mean, he's a pretty miserable fuck. And like, he goes from his bed to the bathroom to his chair, sometimes to the garage to like go drive to get the mail. But like, that's it.
So he's living you're saying he's living the dream.
Well, I wouldn't say no, because all he's doing is watching politics the whole time and being pissed off. But he, but what I'm saying is like, there's only 4 places you're ever at. How'd you lose this book? Like, it should be there's 4 places for it to be,
when you're sitting on the couch and you turn the channel, and then like 3 minutes later, you're like, where's the remote? And you're like, I just had it. I haven't gotten up, and I have no memory of throwing it across the room. but it's nowhere near me anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's wherever that goes is where this book went, I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, that's I'm sure that'll be a great read for your dad though, Stan.
Yeah.
I think as long as he's open-minded, and that's part of the good thing is about it coming from such I guess a non-traditional source. It's not a Joe Rogan book or a Paul Stamets book. It's somebody he's established respect for already. So this may lead him into like, well, I mean, if this guy sees the validity in this topic, maybe I need to revisit my own thoughts about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we had kind of a pre-Christmas Christmas dinner at my apartment where I invited my family, and one of the topics that came up in the middle of dinner that stuck around for probably like 10 minutes was about mycology, and just like mycelium, and not diving into psilocybin, but just talking about lion's mane and all the benefits and the, I guess, extreme depth of mycology, and kind of just like prefacing that. And my dad is a very wants to know how it works type of guy. So whenever he gets hooked on something, he'll go to the deepest of depths and figure it out. And I feel like that is the perfect topic for him to go as deep as you can go with that, because you can go, as we know, beyond these dimensions if you choose to. But even if you stay in this dimension, you can go extremely deep with it, to where you're thinking about evolutionary issues with it. And so, I mean, we'll see. I'm not going to be the type of guy that's going to, come end of January when I'm assuming he's done with the book, ask him about it. But I'm sure my brother will, and I'll ask him about it. So I'll definitely have to report back on that one. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, that'll definitely be an interesting one. Is he the type of guy that if you were to send him a link to like a video or something, he'll actually watch it?
Yeah. Topic is definitely important on that. Like when we were in high school, like, screamed at us for weed, kicked people out of the house for weed, stuff like that. And has yet to circle back to it, to the point where he's just like, wait, this is about to be legal in January, and I screamed at my kid when they were in like a sophomore in high school, and I haven't even said sorry about it, like that type of shit. So it's a very thin line, I feel,
which I mean, arguably though, if you found out like alcohol is legal, but if I found out my high schooler was like he getting blackout drunk on any sort of space, like, yeah, I get it. But also he was coming from it was a generational thing. It was misinformation.
Exactly. And he had 6 brothers and sisters, and a couple of them were chose to abuse some of these substances. So, coming from that type of thing and being an older brother, that can definitely skew your perception.
So do you think, I guess the reason I ask if he'd be interested in that is you may be able to get him to watch a couple clips from Paul Stamets on Joe Rogan, and that might pique his interest and get him thinking that same way as well.
Yeah, I was thinking either that or, even Michael Pollan on the show.
Yeah.
And then just let him kind of find the rabbit hole himself. I'm not sure.
Just a little bit of inception to help him along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. First and foremost is the book. I'm nervous, but it'll be funny to see him open the book and just be like, oh, nice. Because the cover is just how to change your mind. So he won't see the blue subtext until he looks deeper into it. And then with psychedelics. Oh, okay. Nice. Thanks.
That'll be funny. Yeah. That'll be a good Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what do you guys, I guess, what else is going on with you guys? And I'd really like to know what your thoughts on, I guess, any current events.
Man, nothing much has been going on for me. I've just been kind of refocusing my small business efforts to kind of just have a really, really big 2020. I'm trying to save up and actually get a van, so to deck out and live out of part-time, because I haven't really taken advantage of the whole I can work from anywhere part of my job, so I'm looking to do that. So by the end of 2020, the big financial goal is get like a Astro van type of car and deck it out so that I can go wherever, whenever, but also still have my apartment here.
I would say go for one of the Dodge Sprinter vans. They're really popular, and I guess the big thing with it is there's parts for them literally everywhere. They're what
nice.
every delivery van is. They're all the same, and it's the same as the Mercedes Sprinter van. They're all made the same, so you can just get parts for it. You'll never be stuck anywhere without parts because it's a specific, or like an older Astro van or something like that.
Yeah.
But you could definitely do it. I mean, I just do it. I guess that's all there is to it, really.
Yeah, well, saving up first, but once I get that part done, I plan on just traveling, seeing buddies I haven't seen in a while, seeing areas I haven't seen in a while. But yeah, man, other than that, everything else has been good. Family, relationships, all good. Current events wise, I guess I haven't really been in the loop anything other than like my favorite sports teams and stuff like that. I don't know. What about you, Ruben?
Yeah, I mean, I pay attention to current events, but I don't get emotionally. I try to, well, and honestly, it's why I'm like, why I'm into crypto, like, is because I see how shitty current events get, and it's like I kind of spent a long time trying to be contrarian and find out like what's going to benefit from it, and like so that's like 50% of the reason I'm in crypto is contrarian. The other 50% is just as a high risk, high reward retirement investment. But so I pay attention a lot to like, you know, I mean, obviously I pay attention to like the impeachment and what's going on, but like I'm not really a Trump supporter or like I don't like him. Like I definitely wouldn't vote for him, but like I don't seem to get as upset as everyone else does about the stuff that he does.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that are going wrong with like our politics and global,
system as a whole.
Yeah, it's like that shit's just been going on before. It's just unfortunately we have such a clown in the office, in the president's office, that everyone's focused on that, and it seems like the whole central bank fucking financial economy circus has just ramped up because no one's paying attention. And so like I'm kind of paying attention to that stuff, you know, Brexit and like the Central Bank of England and you know, the European Union and what's going on there, and then on top of like what our Fed is doing and everything, I'm paying attention to that stuff. So it's current events, but if I scroll through my Facebook stuff, it's not what everyone's right. It's not what everyone's talking about. So,
and it's a very sort of self-centered. I mean, we're all in America, so that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, like I said, with my new job, I'm listening to podcasts all the time. I'm getting, you know, I'm paying attention to more, you know, if alternative podcast, if that's even possible, since you can find a, you know, a podcast for everything. But, you know, I'm getting my school of thought is getting steered in that direction. So like, I am kind of aware of that, of like, maybe, you know, my perception isn't like, I think it's worse than it is because I'm listening to all these people that think it's bad.
And I mean, that's what happens a lot of the times, is just, it's our perception of the situation rather than, or our us projecting our fears onto the situation and what we think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I try to stay out of, any of the politics stuff. It's easy to get sucked into the whole Trump thing, but I try to stay out of it because at the end, when there was a whole North Korea, they're going to bomb us, they're not going to bomb us thing. I just completely tuned out on that because whether they are going to or not, I have no effect on that. So me freaking out about it does nothing, or even worrying about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing with the president now. Well, the impeachment thing is, regardless of whether you're for the impeachment, whatever, the thing that just blows my mind about it is it happened last night at about 10 p.m. It was the front thing on the front page of Reddit, and it happened, I think, like at 4 p.m. and it was the front page thing. And by the morning, nobody was talking about it. It was old news already. And I just, that's the society we live in now, that it moves that fast that nobody just like, it was no longer front page news that the president got impeached.
Yeah.
Like, that just seems.
Well, it shows how hyper partisan American government has become, and it's one reason I'm not emotionally involved in it, because it's like, okay, the two-party system is done now, and like that's what's happening. Like, it was done when the Democrats decided, and I sound like a jilted birdie, bro, I understand, but when the Democrats used their superdelegate power to say, listen, I know most of y'all want Bernie, but it's going to be Hillary, fuck off. And as soon as they done that, we shifted timelines almost. I've been listening to this podcast, this comedian, Jessa Reed, right? And I don't believe everything she says. Well, I do. It's just I don't agree with the terminology she uses to describe it. But anyway, she talks about like timeline shiftings and stuff. And, she's like this former meth addict that is sober but uses psychedelics.
Is that the one of the drinking her own pee one?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. She's hilarious. Dude, God, that story was ridiculous.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, she's funny, and like her talks on addiction are great. But if you like follow her podcast and then like some other things, she's like, she had this near-death experience and has been like talking with aliens ever since. And it's weird, and totally she could be schizophrenic, but she's also very clear-headed when she's talking about this stuff. So like I listen to it or whatever. But anyway, she talks about timelines a lot. And then like she hadn't done DMT till like earlier this year, and it kicked it really in once she did that. And so, but it made me think, to tie that back into politics, that like once the Democrats made that decision to take the will of the consciousness of the like youth movement of their party and totally say, no, you can't have what you want, this is what it is. They threw democracy out the window, and we shifted to a timeline where Donald Trump is president and nobody gives a fuck if you grab pussy and sell shit to the Iranians or whatever the fuck the impeachment's about. I don't even pay attention enough to know what the actual impeachment's about. So like that's a disclaimer to my like political knowledge here. But
it was when the DNC, I mean, things got rigged. People got fired for that happening. Like they got they got proven that it happened. People got fired over this. And then she immediately went and just ran Hillary Clinton's campaign. And nobody was like, hey, we're calling a do-over on this. Hey, we just like, oh yeah, the results are still valid. Like it was all rigged. They completely threw democracy out the door. And I'm talking about Democrats specifically, which is like, I mean, if I had to pick a side, which I don't, but if I had to, obviously my ideas are more Democratic than Republican. And I mean, it all just went out the window, and everyone's like, oh yeah, just go ahead, keep plowing ahead like nothing happened.
Yeah. That
was the end of it. I didn't want to vote anymore. I'm like, what does it matter? Like, what does any of this matter if they can do that?
Yeah, exactly. And so the situation was that signaled the end of the two-party system. And the problem is that the Republicans are going through the same thing at the same time, except they didn't have the superdelegate system installed in their primaries. And so they couldn't fight off the populists that didn't know what was best for them to where the Democrats did. Like that was the thing. It was like Bernie versus Trump is what that election was. It's just the Democrats had this ability to override the will of the people.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, we shifted when they made that choice. We're in a timeline now that Donald Trump is president and everything's fucking upside down. And it's a circus. And I'm hoping that 2020, the next election, like, gets even more ridiculous to the point where everyone's like, fuck two parties. And I really think I've been screaming for years, and it's one of the reasons I don't vote is because we're like need a third party, because like when I vote,
I mean, we have them, but it's kind of like they're not necessarily practical, I guess. It's always just Republican or Democrat. And
right. Yeah,
it's just the system isn't broken. The system works exactly as it was designed, and that's the problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, like when I So like I say, like, I don't vote, right? And when I tell people that, they're like, well, then you can't bitch. I'm like, well, they take my taxes, so I can't, and then when I'll be like, well, actually that's not true. I do vote. And I vote for like my school levy, or like when there's, like when there was weed, recreational weed in Ohio was on the ballot. I voted for that. And I have, when I do that, if I see third party candidates on the in all the other positions, I vote for them, And so, but when I tell people that, the same people would say, oh, you can't bitch if you don't vote. When I'm like, well, actually, that's not true. I'm sorry, I'm lying. I vote for issues that matter to me. And then when I'm voting it on that ballot, I vote for all the third party or independent candidates. And those same people will be like, well, you're throwing your vote away. And it's like, okay, so fuck off then. That's why I don't want to vote,
Problem is, though, they're not entirely wrong, because as much as we want, like, let's say this third party guy is exactly what we need and want, everyone still just thinks in terms of right and left, Republican and Democrat, and and pretty much every election they seem to hold a majority of the votes, which is unfortunate. But even like you were saying, you vote for the third party guy. I think even that is dangerous to play. I don't vote for people. I vote for ideas. I vote for what not what they're saying now, but what they've been saying for the last 10, 15 years. That's what matters. I mean, for instance, Bernie Sanders, we have pictures of him marching with Martin Luther King saying the exact same stuff that he's saying today. Yeah. Like, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, it's the fact that he's consistent. He's not flip-flopping to the highest bidder. He's got some ideas that he believes in and he's pushing forward. And what was it? Hillary Clinton was anti-gay marriage until like 2013, until she randomly like, oh, okay, I'm for this now because I see that it's polling well. Like, that's not, I don't care even if you're like, oh, we're all for Medicare for all and universal income, all of these things. But if you're just saying that because that's what the person that's giving you the most money has told you to say, it's not, what's that really worth?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, the other thing about Bernie was from when he was marching with civil rights activists until the last presidential election, he was also independent, which you like, maybe that's not a third party, but I mean, it's the same idea. So if I'm not voting, I don't look up who this third party candidate is that I vote for. So I'm not voting for his ideals, but I'm voting for the ideals that there needs to be something other than team blue, team red, pick a D, pick an R, and we're going to shame the fuck out of you if you don't, and so like, that's the ideal that I'm voting for when I vote for those guys. And that's the thing with Bernie is like, he switched to Democrat so that he could run as a president. And if he wouldn't have, he would have won, because that choice to switch is what fucked him over, because that's the party that fucked him over. And it's not like, I mean, I still like the guy, but it's not like I really support him as a president now, because it shows that he's not bought and paid for by corporate interests as far as his ideals, but he's bought and paid for by the two-party system. And I mean, he was raising enough money without their help. He was that grassroots small donation idea, strong ideals candidate that everyone talks about. It's just, unfortunately, the media and just the way that fucking campaigns work, we made socialism this awful word, and no one.
Socialism is totally cool when it's the government giving handouts to major corporations in the form of a bailout, but totally not cool when the government is giving these handouts to people that are starving or struggling to get a degree with their child as a single parent or something. It's only okay when we're giving the money to billionaires. I mean, that handout, that bailout was the definition of socialism.
Yeah. No, and so Well, so here's a question. I was going to do a video on it, and it fucked up, and I didn't get to record it. So I'll pose this question to you because this is my thing. Is that like I've been pro Bernie Sanders since like I think he was in Capitalism: A Love Story. Like they did an interview, the Michael Moore movie, and I was like, oh fuck, I love this dude. Who is it? And that's when I really looked him up. So I don't know how long ago that was, but it was before the election. So I was like pro Bernie, and I felt this like psychedelic thing. Like I was like, oh my god, the candidate I like is actually going to be president. You know?
No, I know what you mean. That psychedelic thing when you just like, oh, like you found a thread that you're supposed to follow.
Yeah, right. And so anyway, do you think that maybe psychedelics in general, but specifically mushrooms, breed socialism into the consciousness that they affect?
Let me think about that.
Like it's a chicken and the egg kind of question. It's like, are hippies socialist because of the drugs, or are they drawn to drugs because they were socialists in the first place?
No, I think definitely I think it definitely puts a sense of it opens you up to societal, I guess, to caring about your society more, about what the people that need to be cared for, the people, like it makes you more loving. So yeah, I would say that it does go hand in hand with specifically mushrooms. Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the stoned ape theory, this was one of the I guess the driving forces behind it was that it made you, the children in your tribe, it wasn't your children, it was our children, and that was what kind of, I guess that was the mushrooms were the catalyst for that, the ones that opened you up to caring more about others and the people around you. And I mean, so yeah, I would say yes, that I do believe that mushrooms specifically, I mean, I don't know if I want to say they lead to, they're a gateway drug to socialism, but they are definitely a gateway drug to caring more about your fellow man, regardless of what they are doing, what you think they deserve or whatever. At the end of the day, this is someone that needs cared for, regardless of what's happening in their life. And I think that is something that psychedelics opens all of us up to.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, unfortunately in America, that word socialism it's been rebranded, as communism. And there's a difference. Like, I'm not saying that because of mushrooms, I have, gotten this philosophy of like, everyone needs to get paid the same. And, there needs to be a income level cap or whatever. It's made me realize that we can all work together to benefit the greater good and to accomplish something that the individual level can't do. And unfortunately, that plays out in the real world. And when you take that away from deep philosophy and ideals that, maybe I've had in these grand visions, tripping or integration afterwards, when that plays out in the real world, that ends up being increased taxes and increased government spending under the system that is currently in place. And so that's why, like, my crypto stuff and everything, and like understanding how the finances actually work in the world, has made me be like, okay, so we can't really abolish that system. It might collapse and maybe we can come out of the ashes, but it's like, we have to take care of each other through tax-based programs.
Yeah, I'm okay with you. I'm okay with my taxes doubling if it means that a man that put his life on the line to fight for our country doesn't sleep on the streets ever again. Yeah, I'm okay with that. That's exactly that's the least gratitude we could show for this man putting his life on the line and several of his friends dying.
Well, yeah, and I'm okay paying for that as long as I know that Jeff Bezos is paying the same amount.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, we need to close a lot of these loopholes, and that's a big problem.
That's the big thing with Bernie, that it's like, okay, stop fucking listening to the buzzword socialism. Listen to him, and Elizabeth Warren talks about this too. You know, whether they're honest about it or not, but like the idea behind it of like the corporations have to pay the same fucking thing. Like, we have to stop this like job creator trickle down mentality, and that's what mushrooms have really like fucking. I've noticed a big difference in my thinking since I've started my adult usage of mushrooms. And that like there's nothing wrong with free markets. There's nothing wrong with the American dream, other than, for the most part, now it's being told to us as a lie from the people that already benefited from it. That's just where I'm at it. That like I think the psychedelics do kind of start moving our consciousness as they're helping evolve our consciousness. They're moving us towards a more, if not socialistic, society, at least a more empathetic and altruistic society.
Yeah, a more planetary society. I mean, we're with the invention of the internet now. I mean, we're connected to everyone, everywhere, all the time, pretty much. And I mean, yeah, to be able to get someone's point of view on the things that are happening in your life and in your country from somebody who's not there is a big thing, I guess. And for instance, all this stuff as far as I want to stay out of politics and not get involved with all this, the one thing that really grabbed me and I could not tear myself away from was everything happening in Hong Kong. That's it's a pretty brutal and scary thing that they're doing. And it's what's even scarier than what's happening over there is the things I've heard people say about it. Like, well, I mean, it's over there, it's not over here. So like, what do we care? Or, I mean, this is why we have borders, right? Is that's their issue, not ours. But like, I don't think people see the grand scheme of what's happening over there and how that affects the entire world.
Yeah. Well, so, all right, that's one current event I'm kind of ignorant on, because I've seen videos of them rioting and like people getting lit on fire and shit. But like, what exactly is the situation over there?
So they have their 5 demands, and I don't believe I can recall all of them off the top of my head. But the big one was the extradition bill, which has now been killed, I believe. But essentially what it said was, imagine, so in Hong Kong, they have democracy. They have their own set of laws. And they basically China wanted to be able to say, but if you do anything there in your own domain that we can have an issue with here in China, we can just extradite you to China and we'll deal with you on our own. And so, I mean, it was essentially imposing China's law on Hong Kong. And that, I mean, that's where all this started and stuff. But even more than the political side of it, I guess, it's the tactical side, the things that the police are doing and the way that the government is handling this. I mean, they've got an entire database with all this facial recognition they've been doing and why everyone was wearing masks, and then they made it illegal to wear masks. Is now they have an entire database of everyone that's participated in these riots. And I believe that we'll see over the next 10 years, 20 years, maybe just 5 years, whatever it is, they're going to just start plucking these people out, or in one way or another, there'll be retributions for defending their rights and standing up for themselves. And I mean, from using ambulances as like essentially SWAT vehicles, because the protesters wouldn't they were blocking the road and they would only let ambulance and fire in. So the police were just taking over ambulances and loading them up with police and rolling them in through the protests like that, which is, I mean, I believe for one, that is a violation of what is it, the law that basically hand down from the UN? Is it the Geneva Convention, the one that says the way we are to do battle and the things we're not supposed to do, and using a emergency medical vehicle to subvert your troops into an area, like that is something that's just simply not okay. And I mean, and we've seen stuff like this happen here when there was the Dakota Access Pipeline, and they were having a peaceful protest, and then there was security, and then all of a sudden there was all these reports of the protesters are now shooting and they're firing their weapons, and the protesters actually were able to catch the guy that was doing the shooting and hold him down and essentially rip off his mask. And he was one of the security guys from the from the pipeline, and he went around behind the protesters dressed up as a protester and just started firing so that they would have a reason to say, oh, now we get to shoot back at them. And this isn't an uncommon thing. I mean, this happens pretty much in every sort of protest. When it suddenly turns violent, there's suddenly this group that I can't remember the one of the where they they like lit a building on fire or something, and they basically arrested all these protesters and then just sort of let them go. And it was like, oh, those weren't actually protesters. They were police that were essentially inciting violence. So they had a reason to make it more physical in there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What do they call, is that a red flag event? What do they call it?
False flag.
False flag. Yeah. And that's part of the problem, man, is like, we've reached that point with the internet and everything that it's like, I don't know what to believe, and that's why it's like I've kind of like not even half, I've like quarter paid attention to Hong Kong, because I'm like, well, I don't know how much of that is propaganda from China, from us. I know that we're in a big fucking trade war with China, so wouldn't we try to fucking like leak news stories that make it look like it's worse than it is, or whatever, so that's where I fall with a lot of that
stuff. You do see that.
Yeah.
If you look at the Hong Kong subreddit, there's a lot of padding and bolstering, sort of like it'll be the headline will be police does something horrific to teen or whatever, and like I've seen the video and it's like, well, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, what he was doing was wrong, but I think in this instance that cop literally tripped and fell on that person. Like, I don't think he was trying to destroy this person's face with something. And like, there are some where they're pushing it too far. And I have a huge problem with that. Like, if you're on the left or the right, I don't care if the lie benefits me personally. It's a lie. It's not any better than the lies that the opposition is telling.
Yeah.
And I have a huge issue with that. I don't care if the lie benefits me. It's still a lie. In the same way, anytime you mention something that like Trump has done or some Republican has done, they always say, oh, what about Joe Biden? What about Hillary Clinton? What about Obama did this with the drone strike? It's like, yeah, no, we're saying lock all of them up too. Like, we're not saying, oh, well, our guy got away with it, so you're right, your guy should get away with it too. It's no, anybody, regardless of what side they're on. And we saw a perfect example of this when was it? I can't remember. It was over the summer, maybe, if not a little bit before. But there was both a Republican and a Democrat that were accused pretty heavily of, I believe it was either child molestation or sexual assault. And the Democrat immediately got strung up by the Democrats and everyone for what he did. And the Republican immediately got protected by the Republicans. And that, I mean, that right there tells you, like, I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me that regardless of whether or not the lie benefited you, that you're okay with it simply because, yeah, they robbed the bank, but I mean, he did bring the money to us, so whatever, it's okay.
Yeah.
So it's a weird time that we're in. It's a weird time to be alive. I mean, we're seeing an impeachment right now, and I don't think, as much as I would like to believe that it's going to amount to something, I don't think it's going to happen. And I think it's going to be really even worse, because I think the impeachment isn't going to happen. And because he gets off on this, he's just going to be invincible then.
It is. Man, I hate to be a Democrat hater, but all they did was just seal his reelection. I haven't seen.
Dude, do you know how crazy this next election is going to get?
I have a lot of Republican friends and stuff like that, and like they're very logical and whatever, and it hasn't changed anyone's mind. It like the exact same, and the Democrats cannot figure out what they, the fact that Joe Biden is still like there shouldn't be any clickbait titles involving Joe Biden that aren't like, oh, hey, look, he fell down again or something like that. Like like the fact that they're trying to put it up like, hey, he's the best chance we got. And the baby boomers are unfortunately falling right into it. And It just sucks, man, that like I just see it all.
I would rather give up the Democratic seat in the White House. I would rather lose the election to another Republican than win with another Democrat that is simply business as usual.
Yeah.
That is simply like, regardless of Democrat, Republican, Obama, Bush, Clinton, all of them, they were all business as usual. They were all simply playing the game. None of them were actually trying to change anything. And, regardless of what side it's going to be, I just, it's ridiculous to like, oh, it's okay, but he's a Democrat, so we're going to win this one. It's like, yeah, but that he still wants to keep things the same. So what does it matter?
Yeah. And the Democratic Party's like kind of direction is banking on the fact that they can just use "we hate Donald Trump, Orange Man is bad" kind of meme shit as like, that's how we're going to win. It doesn't matter who the fuck we have. He's so terrible. Look at him. And I think that just shows how disconnected our two parties are from the rest of us fucking getting a paycheck, man. You know, like it has become such an elitist club that they have no fucking idea.
No, they don't. Oh, look at that questioning of Mark Zuckerberg by Congress. Holy crap, was that a shit show of just demonstrating how out of touch they are with the current world and specifically technology, where he's asking Mark Zuckerberg why his granddaughter is able to see inappropriate material on her iPhone. And he's like, I'm Facebook, right? Like that's not me. And it's just ridiculous how out of touch everyone is. What we're seeing is this is the old regime's desperate attempt to hang on to control and rather than handing it off to the next generation. Yeah. I mean, that's why nobody in control is under like 60 years old.
Yeah.
And they're desperately trying to hold on. And I mean, it's to the point that especially with the Republican Party, they'll burn everything to the ground, I think, before they gave up control of it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's I don't know.
If you thought the last election was crazy, just wait till you see what he's about to pull on this one.
Yeah. No, 2020 is going to be crazy because of that, man. And I suggest for everyone that, like, is on our Discord server where we don't normally talk politics. We don't normally get into like this kind of discussion. Like just immerse yourself in the rest of life and it's going to really try to seep into your life the next year. Like everywhere you turn,
whether you're paying attention or not. So why pay attention to it?
Exactly. And so like, to go back to before we started talking about politics, like what's in plan for 2020? And Stan and I are going to do an episode. The last episode of the year is going to be kind of a reflective and looking forward to the new decade and all that stuff. So we'll go more in depth into this, but to sum it up, like my next year is going to be like, I'm focusing on me and my life, and I don't give a fuck what happens in politics and whatever. As long as it's good for the Bitcoin price, I'm good.
God dang. I wish I would have gotten to Bitcoin when I had the chance. Like when my buddy, I'll never forget sitting on my front porch and my buddy introducing me to Bitcoin. Like I'd never heard of it. And he's showing me, he's like, yeah, let me show you the prices right now. And I remember him pulling out his phone and showing me them at $12 a piece. Yeah. And oh God. And then when I first bought them, they were like $30 a piece. And I bought $80 in Bitcoin. I spent like $60 in Bitcoin and had 120 left because of how crazy the price had gone up. And I left it right before when it was moving up, before it was going crazy volatile. And I could have made so much money back then. I mean, we all could have. And it's just, one of those.
Yeah. I honestly, man. And again, maybe my school of thought is steered in this direction, but we ain't seen nothing yet, man. And the reason I say that, the reason I say that is because it is a completely different fucking system. It's only 10 years old, and one of them costs more than my car. and so like, I don't care that it was 20,000 and now it's 7. I don't care about that, because if you look at the macro trend, we ain't seen nothing yet, and unless something comes out to where the code is rendered useless, that's the only thing I worry about. And unfortunately, that's the part of Bitcoin I know the least about, is the actual fucking technical, like, coding
hashes and all that.
I don't get that. But the thing is, I see enough of people that at least seem to know what they're talking about to be like, well, I trust them more than I fucking trust some other jackass that's just trying to tell me whatever, And so, I just kind of have faith in the technology aspect of it. And I don't know how that's any different than any faith in anything else, honestly.
Well, and that's what you were saying when you were saying about how all this has come out about Donald Trump and just all that's going on, but it's not changing anyone's mind. That's because it's no longer, people aren't weighing the pros and cons of him and making a decision. It's now a belief system. These people believe in him like they believe in God. And regardless of what you say, that's one of my favorite things when I was more like a militant atheist, when I just wanted to confront everyone, and the phase every atheist goes through where you're just angry about being duped for so long, basically. And I learned such a good trick to avoid so many arguments. And it's simply asking the person, is there anything anyone could ever do or say to change your mind on the fact that there is a God? And if the answer is no to that, then this isn't a logical discussion and we have nowhere to go to this. Because I know my mother lives just like a mile away, but if she came to me with the right documents and said the right things, I would have to accept that I was adopted and this is not my mother, or that my name isn't really Tyson, it's something else, or anything. Anything in your life should be open to confrontation and open to being challenged, because then all you're left with is the truth. Because if it's real, if it's true, it can take any question you're willing to throw at it. And that's where it's Donald Trump has now become an ideology for a lot of people, and that's what's really scary, because you can't reason a person out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
Yeah. Well, and so check this out, right? 1 Bitcoin costs, right now, whatever day it is, it's $7,000. And that is a time that people have belief in the US dollar at its current power. And that involves Donald Trump, that involves the impeachment, everything is involved in that belief of how much that dollar costs. 7,000 of those dollars cost 1 Bitcoin. Now imagine how many of those dollars it will take to buy 1 Bitcoin in a scenario where most people don't believe in that dollar.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
When people
so you're pulling a big short right now. You're betting on the collapse of the U.S. dollar.
Well, like I said, 50% of my investment is betting on that.
Whew, that's a terrifying bet. Like, best case scenario, America falls apart and you get rich. That's a horrifying bet.
I'm not talking about a total collapse in belief of the dollar. I'm just talking what happens when it's shaky.
Yeah.
When people are speculating on how poor the dollar is, and as long as the technical aspect of Bitcoin still holds up, how much is that could be worth? And that's where I'm saying we ain't seen nothing yet, because we're at $7,000 right now. And that's at a point in time where most people either A, don't know what Bitcoin is, or B, think it's a joke because it used to be worth $20,000, but now it's only worth $7,000.
Yeah. This is the first time I've seen the price of Bitcoin in forever. I still can't believe it's that much.
Exactly. It's a joke to most people. Most people have lost their ass on it, and it's $7,000. And we're at an all-time high stock market. We're at an all-time high of quantitative easing also, which I don't want to get too much into that in this podcast, but Stan and I will get into more of that, because this is like, when I'm looking forward the next decade, this is the stuff I'm thinking of. But anyway, that's how much it costs now. And at the start of this year, it was $3,000. It's up to $7,000 this year. I've done the percentages and the math. I went and talked to my wife is like, you won't touch Bitcoin. She's got like a fucking money dude that's handling her IRA account that he takes 5% or whatever the fuck to do whatever the fuck he does with it. And it's like I'm against it, but I'm never going to convince her to do something else different, and that's fine. And I think of that as like hedging our bets as well. It's like, well, either I'm wrong and we're going to be fine with her retirement, or she's wrong and we're going to be fine because I'm doing this or whatever. But I, like in the 3-4 years that I've been involved in crypto, even with that bubble and crash, I have outperformed her. If I want to consider my crypto portfolio, my retirement portfolio, I've outperformed hers.
Well, that's good, I guess.
And with the crash and fall, and it's like, that's not what the media and the sentiment around crypto wants people to believe. If you look at it from the weekly or monthly, yeah, it's all trader bullshit and it's up and down and there's no regulation, so it's manipulated. Yes, there's all that involved. But if you look at it overall, like something's happening to the dollar. Like, you can get paid 13 of those motherfuckers to put in an hour of work for Walmart. You can't say that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so has the value of the work at Walmart went up? No.
And the cost of things isn't going down.
Right.
Like the cost of things is the what you make versus what it costs to live. That ratio has gotten significantly worse.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I don't want to get too far in the weeds there, but that's the hedged bet I have with Bitcoin towards the other things. And that's why, like, yeah, you're right, man. If you would have had that $30 Bitcoin and held on to it, you would have fucking killed. But that doesn't mean it's over. And I hate that like mentality that people that, when I hear someone like you that knew about it before anyone else did, and it's like, I wish I would have done that. It's like, it's still going, like, and it's just, it's taken on the role that it was created to do.
I guess now it's not it wouldn't be buying one at $30 and a couple years later, it's worth $7,000. That would be like a massive windfall. And now it's more like actual investing because it's an investment you're going to sit on and you're going to wait. So yeah, you can still do it, but I'm talking about I made $7,000 in a year. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was the lotto.
That had all of them. And what was it? The guy that back in when they very first were created, he was like, "Oh, I've never heard of this, but sure, I'll give it a go." And I think he spent, what was it, $25 and bought 25,000 Bitcoin. And was able to actually go out in his garage or somewhere and find that computer and still had them. And I mean, maybe for all I know, this is a Bitcoin urban legend, but it's not improbable either.
No, dude, the Bitcoin is only 10 years old. Like it's like there's lots of crazy shit that happened. There's lots of crazy shit still to happen with it. The thing is, as long as the technicals stay solid, we ain't seen nothing yet. Isn't the Bitcoin market pretty well, I heard one of the fears is that it's open to manipulation, and that didn't this happen to one of the other coins where they got a bunch of whatever company had made this coin or whatever, got a bunch of people to buy into it and then dumped it overnight and took all the money basically? Yeah, of course. I mean, it's granted, Bitcoin's decentralized. Yeah. Well, no, but it's not because of that, Well, I mean, it kind of is, but if you want to consider centralized versus decentralized, meaning who has most of it, it's centralized as fuck. Like there's, one mining farm that has 50% of it or whatever. Is that really? Oh yeah. Yeah. But, how does that happen? Because they have all the miners. like it became so expensive to mine it that like, you can't just mine it on your laptop anymore, Yeah, and you can't. Isn't it that it costs more in electricity than you actually made off the coin, so you were losing money? Right, and then so like that was kind of built into the halving price and stuff like that. So it was kind of inevitable that it would become kind of centralized because unless we switch to to free power and like so maybe this is like kind of part of the evolution of it is it I mean it takes nothing to set up your own solar panels and start mining it off that. Right. And so maybe that's the end game with it. I don't know. But it was kind of set up to like eventually only rich corporations were going to be able to mine it. But it I wouldn't the decentralized part more has to do with the governance of it, and like it's your money. If you have a wallet, you can't get confiscated, you know? Like and so like nobody has to grant you permission to use it, and so it's decentralized in that aspect. But as far as like who's controlling it and who's manipulating it, no, it's not decentralized.
And Stan, are you involved in this at all?
Yeah, I have some investments that I'm just going to hold on to long term and see how it pans out.
Yeah, you're not really playing the market. You're just hanging on.
No. I used to, but it's just to be a big distraction from my the now. So I try to avoid those.
No, I see what you're saying. It's definitely a rabbit hole that you can get way into.
Yeah, just like any investment though, stock market, day traders, same thing.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And I don't have the intelligence or, I guess, understanding to learn how to do it, in a professional manner to the point where I'm making money each and every day. I think
you're basically becoming a day trader.
Yeah. I don't have that ability.
No, that's not worth it. It's like you're like anybody who's like, oh, I'm going to day trade crypto or day trade stocks or whatever and make it like you ain't going to beat the institutions, and so the smartest thing is to just like make sure you have it, make sure, you have it safe and you're not like trusting some other party to hold it, and just sit on it and just make, dollar cost average in. And that's what I do. And that's what Stan does. And that's what I preach. Whenever people are like, oh, it's down, is it a good time to buy? It's like, yeah, when it's down, that's a good time to buy. Like it's not going away. So I don't get scared by that anymore. Like I've definitely had a lot of emotions in the past couple of years tied to cryptocurrency markets. And I've learned like, fuck, it's all bullshit. Like, and the stock market's the same way, except it's so manipulated that it only goes up. Like that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, I'll just keep it in an IRA. No, like, again, I'll get into that more in our next episode, but like it's complete bullshit, and like the bottom will drop out, and so that's where I'm at with like hedging my bets. But hey, we have not talked about your bus yet, man, and so like I apologize for everyone if you tune into this podcast and not listen to politics, but like hopefully that was entertaining. But when we talked to you before, we were talking about you getting your bus up and running and stuff like that. So like, how's all that going?
Well, this is where I guess it gets, I have to walk the talk that I've been talking and actually show the real side of everything. And it hasn't been going just smooth sailing and hashtag bus life as much as Instagram perfect as you would like. So we made a lot of progress on it. We did, I can't remember where I was at last we talked, but the floors got insulated the floors. I laid the subflooring. We laid the actual wood floors in, started framing out the bathroom, and then everything came crashing down. And, so I hired a company to do spray foam insulation on the ceiling. I didn't want to, as much as I'm building this out and doing my own thing, there was a couple of things I didn't want to cheap out on. I wanted to have the best insulation, and I paid this company to come do it. And I believe what happened is they didn't get the bus up to temperature before spraying it because it was a cold day. And the chemicals didn't catalyze together completely. And long story short, the insulation got messed up. The bus now is pretty much, at this point for right now until I get it out of there, it's pretty much uninhabitable. As the best way I can describe the smell is like rubber fish. It's not bad. You can barely smell it on a cold day, but the second we warm it up in there or get the stove going or anything, it just, when I come out of there, I have to change my clothes before I go in the house because I smell so horrible. And also because I was misled by him that it was safe to go in there on the same day. I got exposed to these chemicals. And what happens from the research that I've done is essentially I started feeling horrible. I got super anxious, like mid panic attack for like several days is what it felt like. And these are all side effects of being exposed to that, the spray foam. So not just the spray foam, the uncured chemicals in the spray foam. And so now for the rest of my life, I'm going to have a sensitivity to them.
Oh, man.
So at this point where the bus is what I'm trying to do is we have to take it all out. We have to take out all the insulation, the spray foam. And I'm just going to go back to using foam board, which is what I used on the floors. And thought I was doing the right thing by not using that. And so that's pretty much where we're at right now. And it's been really devastating. It's been like, it was a solid like month-long depression where I wouldn't let myself give up on the bus. I won't let it. I mean, that's the only way it doesn't happen is if I let myself convince, oh, well, it's taking too long. It's too much money, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you have to say you're giving up on this and moving on. And we're not, it's too important to do that. So yeah, it's been a real struggle. It's not been it was pretty much up until this point, it has been nothing but sunshine and rainbows and hard work that I absolutely love doing. And now it got really scary for a while. And I don't know. I don't know that I've ever invested myself into something this much in my life before. Like I've given my all to doing this, and I've never felt more defeated than when I finally realized like this just didn't come out right. And I am pretty much back at square one, not tearing everything out of the bus, but I mean, this is going to be a lot of work to get all this insulation out of there and scrape it out and then wire wheel it all back to bare metal and go from there. So, and also, which is I really hate this part, but because that, I haven't been able to be in the bus and I don't want other people in there at this point, I've had other people in there. Nobody is affected by any of the smells or chemicals. Nobody gets any weird side effects or nothing like that. It's just a smell that is just it's just a horrible smell. Mm-hmm. But because of that, I haven't been able to do the group for some time now either. The others, I haven't been able to have our weekly psychedelic discussion group. And, I don't have anywhere else to do it. And that's been really hard trying to stay in touch with people. But yeah, it's just, it's life, I guess is what it is. And this is what for whatever reason, this is what the universe decided. This is what I'm supposed to go through. There's something to be learned here. I mean, at the end of the day, I know that if I make it through this, I mean, we're going to make it through anything. And it's a setback, but I mean, that's what makes you stronger is falling down like this. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, first off, dude, that sucks to hear, man. And I totally understand how devastating that can be and how depressing that can, or how much depression that can cause. So, I'm glad to, talk to you and talk about it. And you sound like you got a good perspective on it.
Yeah. Finally, it's about 2 weeks ago, I finally started coming out of it and like, okay, it's not like I'm not giving up on this. It's just a thing that we have to get past now. But it was about a month of this is the worst thing ever. I don't know what to do. Honestly, the big thing was I didn't even want to think about the bus. Like the second I thought about it, I thought about the insulation and what I was going to have to do. And it was really being in limbo, not knowing if I could fix it. Because on top of this, when I had the company come back out and try and talk to them about it, and he's like, oh, just paint over it. It'll seal it off. You won't do anything. You won't smell anything. So I went and bought the best paint for this possible at like $45 a gallon and spent about $500 on paint, and it still didn't fix the issue. But on the positive side of that is the anxiety for me comes from being in limbo, not knowing if it's going to get fixed, if I can fix it with the paint, if I can do this. And now I finally know it has to come out, period. And I can move on to now, how am I going to get it out of there?
Yeah.
And I don't have all of these ideas and different variables running around my head. I know what I need to do. But there was like a solid month where every time I pulled up to my house and I saw the bus, I just kind of crumbled in my seat and just had to like, and I hated not loving that thing anymore. I hated seeing it and having anxiety when I saw it. And I miss it, and I'm just dying to get back to it. And the second I get that installation out of there, we're taking it on a trip. I don't care if it's the middle of winter with snow. We're gonna go up and go camping in it for a weekend. And I need to reconnect with it. I need to. Yeah. That was what everyone told me to do when we first got it. Is they said, don't just start working on it. The second you get it, go out on some trips, because if you don't build a connection to it, it's just another chore you have to do. It's a project you just continually are building and forever working on this thing. But now it's like our bus. And I mean, if I had $100 million right now, I would pay someone to finish this thing out in the most amazing way, but I wouldn't go buy another bus, because this is there's sentimental value in this thing. We've already had adventures and memories in it. And that's what keeps me going, is thinking back to just that feeling, being behind the wheel at night on the open freeway, just cruising along. It's the best feeling. And yeah, I'm just dying to get back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's like you said, this is what the universe has chosen for you to go through, man. It's, and unfortunately, like when we're faced with difficulties like this, whether it's starting a business or, having a bus or starting a podcast, whatever. Unfortunately, the safe thing that we're kind of wired from society to do is, as soon as something like that happens, to be like, fuck it, I wasn't supposed to do this, and to look at it, like we're taught, and I don't know what school of thought in society it is, but we're taught to like take failure as a sign of like it wasn't meant to be, this isn't our path.
I fell off my bike, I must not be meant to ride bikes.
Right. And I've lived a long part of my life of like accepting failure as defeat. And, it's not the same, but to kind of parallel your challenge you're faced with here with my new job. I took the job as a temporary thing, just to kind of try it out. But I did a video about this, but I don't think you've seen it, but for people listening, they've heard me talk about this. But one of the things in my field in biology that you can do is environmental consulting. But often these jobs are on the road traveling, and I've always said since I've been in college, like, I'm not gonna fucking do that. I don't want to do that. And it's always been like, I'm not going to fucking do that. Well, so this year I've applied and interviewed and gotten second interviews for like 10, maybe 15 fucking jobs. One job, I went through 2 rounds of interviews and didn't get the job. And then like 2 months later, they were like, hey, are you still looking for a job? And brought me back in for 2 more interviews and didn't give me the job again. That were to where I was like, are you fucking with me? Like what the, like what the fuck is this? But anyway, but so I went through all that, and the only job that offered me a job was this company, but they were like, listen, it's temporary, it's for 2 months, and half the time you're going to be staying away from home. And I was like, God, I was like, I didn't want to do. And so I applied for this job, and it was local. And it was the only reason I was like, it's a consulting agency, but it's local. And then they were like, yeah, we didn't give you that position. I've come to find out later that position actually never existed. It was kind of like a bait and switch thing. But anyway, they were like, but we got this temporary position. It's 2 months worth of work. And 50% of the time you're going to be in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, and you got to stay overnight. You can come home on Saturday nights and Sunday nights, and then you got to be back. And
so where are you staying overnight? Like, are you in a hotel, or are you out in the wilderness in like a tent?
Well, hotels, and they would pay per diem. And I mean, it was paying well and stuff like that, but I was like, ugh. But I was so beaten down, depressed by like, I decided this year, like after last winter, Stan and I both like went through like just fucking winter blues, and just like we kind of, that was kind of a big part of our podcast and stuff like that. But I was like, I can't do another unemployed winter. You know, I was like, and so this whole year up until August, I had been trying to get a job, and this was the only job that offered it to me. But it was also the job that I had sworn off that I wouldn't do. And I was like, so here's the thing. I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna take this leap of faith and jump into the abyss, and hopefully it's a feather bed, right? You know, and I took some Terrence McKenna advice there, and what ended up happening was after about 2 weeks, they decided that there was too much work for two people to do, because I had a partner that came in. They brought him in from Florida, and he was a fucking nightmare. I'm gonna be talking about this guy for the rest of my life. He was a 60-year-old uber left-wing baby boomer that ran his own company for 12 years and like was now working, you know, kind of contractor.
He thought he knew everything right because he ran a company.
Exactly.
Oh my God. It's but now you're here.
Yeah. And so like, so that was a whole thing. Like, I was tested by this guy. He was super negative, always like, this fucking company, fuck these motherfuckers, fuck them, you know, blah, blah, blah. And like, so it was like that, but I was just like staying positive through it. And after about a week of like, well, it took about 2 weeks for me to stop buying into his bullshit. And after about 2 weeks, they decided, hey, there's too much work for you guys. We're bringing in another crew. They had to do most of the out of town stuff. I had to stay in Muncie, Indiana for a week. And I had to stay in Indianapolis for a weekend. And then
this sounds awesome though. You get to travel a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it was like there was like some nights here and there, but other than that, that's all I ended up having to do. So it was kind of cool to like get out of town and work for a little bit, but then you're back home and whatever. Like, I was working a lot, but I stayed positive in the face of this negativity that was put. Like, he was the only dude I was working with. It was me and him in a truck for 10 hours a day. And it just super negative, trying to get me to feed into it. And my initial reaction was like to argue with him, but then I ended up like kind of like agreeing with him. And then I had this like conversion of like, I feel sorry for him and this is awesome. I'm grateful for this job. Nobody else wanted to give me a job. And as soon as I switched my like focus to like that gratefulness and like willing to figure out how to get this job done, despite him, who was the main difficulty, my coworker who was driving me around in the truck was my main difficulty. And I had to figure out how to overcome him. And once I did this, the timeline changed, and it just fucking this. They hired me on full time. He fucking just deconstructed and quit and flew back, and it was a whole shit show. But like everything fucking worked out for me because I accepted the challenge and I stayed positive and grateful in the face of that challenge. And
good and bad are just different sides of the same coin.
Right.
So anywhere you see bad, look for the good.
Right. And so my point in telling that to people is not that like, hey, you'll get this fucking job too, or whatever. It's not that. It's that I was faced with a challenge, and instead of accepting it, I took it head on and figured out how to work with it.
Yeah, and that was another thing from Terrence McKenna. That was Alan Watts. That anytime you're confronted with a ghost, you must turn and walk directly into him, because otherwise it's going to follow you around for the rest of your life. Like, it's a fear that you have, and when you have a fear, you just have to turn around and go, all right, here we go. Like, one way or another, this is coming out. Like, good or bad. And good or bad, good and bad are both better than good or bad. And what I mean is, any result being good or bad is better than that limbo you're in where you don't know how it's going to come out. When you go in, I don't know, you're going to be, It's hard to explain. When you go take an STD test, those next 24 hours, you don't know how it's going to come out, are agonizing because you're going through everything in your head, and good or bad, at least then you know, and you're moving on from that versus that torture of just, oh God, what if this and what if that and back and forth. And yeah, you have to, one way or another, just let it come out, good or bad, and you can move past it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. You're right though. The limbo, and like, that's, maybe. So when I became a stay-at-home dad, like I gave myself 3 years. I was like, that was my timeline. And I made it 2. And I don't know if I gave up too easy on that, but also it's like, I think I felt I played my gut right, and I was in this limbo of like, I don't know how I'm financially going to make this whole unemployed thing work for one more year. I'm amazed and grateful that I made it for 2 years.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was the limbo that got to me or if the universe telling me like, hey dude, time to work, time to get back to work.
Maybe just time for a new adventure. Maybe
time
it's not
for a
that...
new adventure. And also it's like, I totally believe, I don't believe like in like, oh, this is your, you have to be in the right place at the right time. And if not, you miss it. It's a cycle that always comes back around. And I think it's like, the timing of like, cause that's the thing, the temporary job and the full-time job are tied into each other, for this mapping project. But if that job wouldn't have been there next year, and I fucking love the job. Like, it's awesome. It's going to lead to a lot of things, but it wouldn't have been there next year.
That's how I got my job. I had to face my own fear. I was working for an alarm company, and one of our clients was a jewelry store, and they called and were like, look, we've got some cameras that are having some issues and we'd like someone to look at them. We don't want to pay your technicians because you guys are going to charge us a bunch. But do you just have like a nerdy college kid around that knows electronics that might be able to do it on his days off or something like that? And they're like, oh yeah, we got Tyson. We'll send him over to meet you. And on one of my days off, I just came by and said, hey, I'm Tyson. This is what I'm the guy that you asked for. And they kind of just showed me around and what he wanted. And really, it was just kind of cleaning up the wires on their camera system. It was pretty simple. And I mean, that led into 5 years now. And I've gone from doing that to I'm a jewelry designer now. When we got married, I made our wedding invitations, and we got married at a concert venue here called The Gorge. And the RSVP, since the invitation was a concert ticket, the RSVP was literally the ticket stub. It was all perforated. You tore it off and sent it back to us. And when I showed this to them, they were like, we didn't know you know how to do graphic design, but since you do, we have a CAD computer back here that nobody knows how to use. Would you like to learn how to do it? And I watched YouTube videos for like the next month or so, learning. I'd never done CAD before, but I just taught myself from YouTube University. And now I'm 3 years in, making $60,000-$70,000 rings sometimes, like just insane rings. And it's all because when they originally said, hey, will you come work on our cameras? I turned it down because I didn't think I could do it. It looked too complicated for me. And I remember going home and telling my wife, and she's like, yeah, but maybe you just need to do it. And I just said, you know what? I'll figure it out. I'll take the chance. And all of that has led to this now.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you never know what they could have sent someone else and they'd be working there or whatever, and so it's like, you just got to trust the timing, of, we're all just fucking floating around, and
it's all just a game. We don't be afraid to play it.
Right. And, we bump into each other at random times for random things, but we could choose to make that time mean something. And we choose that by saying yes and not by saying no. And that's one thing in my life I've realized. I said no too much. I set up too much permanence, too much, just like this is what I do and this is what I don't do, and go. And I think it's
really weird that we do that, because we're natural biological life. We have infinite number of variables and different decisions to make. but in every chance we're given, we try to act like machines. This is my routine in the morning. This is where I go. This is what I do. This is the box that I've built myself to live in. And I mean, the magic of this life that we have, just that you get to be a human on this planet in this particular time, is the exact opposite of that. We have the chance to do anything and explore any little niche, but we tend to just build ourselves into these little comfort boxes. And your comfort zone is the fast track to mediocrity. It's to just doing nothing. And all the good things happen in life outside of your comfort zone, and they all usually happen behind fear. Like most people would say the greatest thing in their life was when they had their children. Like that gave their life so much more meaning. How terrifying was it at first, though, to think about having a child, or what you had to go through, or being a parent, or for women, just going through childbirth itself. I mean, these are all fears that we got over to just something amazing on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing has ever been as bad as I was afraid it was going to be, you know. And yeah, I mean, bringing up children, like, well, that was one thing, you know, Stan and I, one thing I wanted to talk about in our next podcast, you know, looking back on the last decade, like this decade we're leaving was the first decade of me being a parent. So, my oldest son is 10. And we went through some fucking terrible shit. Like, you know, a lot of people have problems with pregnancy, but like, I mean, my wife ended up like in the hospital in a coma, you know, and I went through like terrible shit. You know, when my son was first born, you know, I'm holding him and not knowing if he's going to have a mom. And that sounds scary, right? To like, if you were about to have a child and they're like, hey, your wife may die, like you're going to fucking freak out. But for some reason in the middle of that, I didn't. Like, I don't know what it is. What, like, you get through difficulties by, I mean, I had to accept it because there's nothing else you could do. But in situations where you can choose to accept it or not, you better accept it, because that's how you're going to actually figure out how to get over your difficulties, no matter how fucking tragic they may be. Like, that's, you know, you got to face them. And
you change the things that you can and accept the things that you can't. Everything else is madness.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. If you can change it, then go change it. And also in the same vein, don't try to catch yourself complaining. Because if you're complaining about something, then change it. And if you can't change it, there's no use in complaining about it, because all you're doing is hurting yourself. That feeling that you get, that feeling, that chemical in your brain is like you're literally poisoning yourself because of the situation. But if you can change it, then change it. If you hate going to your job, you just absolutely loathe going to your job, then you need to find something else. And okay, but I can't, and I have to stay at this for whatever reason. Well, I mean, for one, you have to stay there for whatever reason is probably imaginary. That I have to stay here because I have a child. And it's like, no, you have to have some sort of stability to be able to feed them, but you could be working your way out of this. Like, yes, you need to have some sort of income to support this child, but it doesn't mean you have to be in this one and settle it. What are you working on outside of this? What are you doing you spend 8 hours a day building someone else's dream for you because they pay you to do it? How much time every day do you spend building your own? And one of the really good tests I find for this, and I do it on myself all the time, is if you suddenly right now you've got $100 million, not how much does your life change? Because everyone's life would change with that, but how much does the direction of your life change? Like, if you're like, oh my God, I would quit everything. I would go open that bakery I've always wanted to open. It would just be the most amazing thing. It's like, yeah, that would happen overnight with all that money, but there's no reason you shouldn't be working towards that even incrementally. In 20 years down the road, I'll have my bakery or whatever it is. You should be working towards that anyways. And like I said, right now, if I had all this money, my bus would just be done quick and we would go just a lot more carefree, because we wouldn't worry about maintenance costs and gas or anything. And honestly, if I had that much money, this bus would be electric in a heartbeat. But it's just pull these sort of, I guess, these challenges, these logic challenges on yourself, and I guess cognition challenges on yourself, consciousness challenges, to see where you're going and if that's truly where you want to go. Like, just ask yourself that. And if it's not only can you do something about that, only you can do something about that. That's it. There's nobody else out there to do anything about it. And no matter how small that step is, just you owe it to yourself and everyone else that you either support or love to be doing this, to be progressing yourself towards something. I mean, it really is like, I hate that we didn't get these things when we were kids, when our parents said, you can be anything and you can do anything. And then you grow up and you're like, damn, they were totally right. I really can do anything, huh? Like, I kind of wasted all of that by not believing them. Like, okay, mom, it's just this mom stuff you're telling me. But it's true. You really, like, nothing is impossible. It's only impossible if you think it is. And that's what it comes down to. I always ask myself that is this, whatever I want to do, is you want to quit, you're miserable at your job and you have a child you have to support, would getting a job that makes you happy be humanly impossible, like flying off the ground right this second? If the answer is no, then it's possible, and that's all that it takes.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's life. I don't know. It's weird because it's like, it's hard to do those things, but by not doing all those things, it makes it harder. It's hard to make that initial step. And
the scariest thing to do in life is not take a chance.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so I got a question on a brighter note. What is between you guys, anything bright, new, happy, positive in your life? Something you're really excited about that's going on? Like, I guess, Ruben, that's your new job. I mean, you're really excited about that, and you've been telling me about it. Yeah. But yeah, Stan, what about you? What's something
Stan's about to go to Florida.
Yeah, I guess that's positive.
I'd be excited about that.
Yeah. No, that's definitely positive. Going to see my buddy for New Year's Eve, going to Miami.
Anything like that even.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. But even something more simple than that, I'm a sucker for the holidays, and Christmas is by far my favorite holiday. So it's like this time of the year, and just it's not about the gifts or anything like that. It's just like being around family, and I got two brothers, and it's been probably this past decade for sure, but more recently, the past 5 years, where you've kind of felt and seen the separation, as we've grown older. So it makes those times together so much more important. And, I'm never going to be willing to like give up that connection with my brothers. So, any time I have with them, I'm going to look forward to it. So I think that's the biggest and brightest positivity that I have coming up, in the foreseeable future. Yeah.
And that's a great point about that. It's not about presents. We actually are skipping presents this year, and nice. We put all the money into renting a cabin up in the mountains, and we're just going to do Christmas Day up there. So we got an Airbnb cabin up in the mountains and spending 3 days up there. Yeah, and it costs nothing. We were like, all right, we're going to put all the money from presents towards this. We thought it was going to be like $800 for this one we were looking at, and then we found the perfect little log cabin for $200. So I mean, it's just an absolute yeah. It's been going good, and I think it's just important to sometimes recap some of the positive things in your life. They say you can't be unhappy and grateful at the same time. So when you start, like, literally just the way your brain functions. So when you start feeling this, like, I'm not good enough, all these things are wrong, name 5 things you're grateful for. And it's not 100%, but I have found a lot of the times it sort of short circuits whatever hole I'm starting to head down in. And just, I'm grateful I do have this job, and I'm grateful for this. And it's all the little things in life.
And it sucks. Like, I have a buddy of mine that, he's in my band, and I just hear from him so much. Like, I feel like we can't catch a break. And like, I mean, he's a happy dude. He's funny and everything like that. But he just reminds me of a lot of people that, you know, I know that have always been down, and just negative shit's always happening to them, but their outlook is always, man, I can't catch a break. This always fucking happens to me. I don't
all
know
in
why
how
I'm
you
not
look at it.
right. And the people that everything's going right are always like, well, I mean, sometimes they're religious and they're like, oh, thank you, Jesus, or whatever. But still, that's gratitude, you know. But you know, they're always like thankful, charitable, you know, all these things. And again, maybe it's a chicken and the egg scenario. Are they grateful because everything works out for them, or does everything work out for them because they're grateful? And does everything shitty happen to the other people because they're not grateful, or do they have nothing to be grateful for because everything happened shitty?
I mean,
to them?
you get back what you put out, so
do.
I do see that.
Yeah, I mean, and I just know from this year I've shifted my view mid-year, and everything has changed.
Good. Keep that up.
You know, and so as far as, like what's going forward, like that's it. Like I don't have New Year's resolutions. I don't fucking do that. Like, you know, whatever. Like,
you're not going to go join everyone at the gym? Like,
well,
just
I do play
on
like
January 1st.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to the gym real good all year until I started working. I haven't figured out. Like,
yeah, but you're walking.
Oh yeah, I am. I actually, I'm way more active than even that. But like, you know, toning and cardio, you know, like.
Well, I just joined the gym actually. That's one of the big positives in my life right now. Is as ridiculous as this sounds, as a 33-year-old 6'5" black man that's pushing about 325 pounds, for years I have been looking for a dance studio that I could dance in. I've always been obsessed with music, and I just love dancing. And I never took any class or nothing like that. Just the dancing you do in your bathroom when you're standing in front of the mirror about to take a shower like that. Like I absolutely love dancing, and I've always wished you can dance anywhere, but having a mirror in front of you really allows a sense of feedback to see what you're doing actually looks like. And I finally found one around here that had a dance studio in it that allows you to just use it anytime there's not a class going on. And I can't tell you how much joy it brings me in my life just to be alone in this room with people randomly. Every once in a while, somebody will peek in and like, oh, that's really weird, I'm going somewhere else. And I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm just now starting to get into the gym. And the big thing for me, because I've gone before and not stuck with it, was for when they said, just get in the habit of going. Even let's say you never go to the gym and you're just trying to start. Even if you say you're going to go 2 days a week, even if those 2 days are just you walking on the treadmill for 5 minutes, get in the habit of getting there. And then you build up that habit to, I'm doing all these supersets and all that stuff. But you got to get that habit first. And when I would go and try and get in the habit of going, while I'm there, I'm obsessing over, should I be doing this? Should I be doing this? Am I doing the elliptical long enough? Should I be on a higher level? I don't really know. Is this getting my heart rate up high enough? I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. Just focus on the habit of going. And that seems to help so much. And the reason I wanted to get into dance is I decided I need to find something that I truly enjoy doing that's going to get me in shape. The way that they say, have 3 hobbies, one that makes you rich, one that makes you happy, and one that keeps you in shape. And this is just it. It's my way to get in shape, and I feel infinitely better already just from going in the couple of times to do it. So, yeah, it's helped a lot. And I guess just get out there and try new things. Don't be afraid to try new things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely that's what I urge people to do that in the next year and going forward. And like I said, I plan on trying to practice more gratitude and charity in my life, and preaching and inspiring others to do that through this podcast and YouTube videos and stuff like that. Like I want to counteract, like we were talking about, all the politics that's going to be shitty in the next year. I want to counteract all that and do what I can to put my beacon out in the universe of positivity, you know? So,
yeah.
But
what, we only kind of mentioned, we've been so engrossed in all of our like awesome conversations and stuff. Where have you guys been at with actual psychedelics lately?
Well, I haven't. I did a little bit of mushrooms in Mexico. We were in Mexico for a wedding like a month ago or so.
Oh man, that's where it all started. Was Ram Dass and Rich and Timothy Leary doing mushrooms in Mexico?
Yeah. I smuggled them in though.
Wait, into Mexico?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I didn't get them down there. Yeah. You'll have to check out our podcast episode talking about that. I could.
They're not stopping drugs from going into Mexico. It's coming out of there, I guess.
Yeah, you
They
would
aren't
think
stopping
that,
either way.
yeah, no, but let's just say I can. I mean, I made it through fine, but I can hang my hat on the international drug smuggler hook now in my life. Yeah, I brought cannabis pills and kratom and mushrooms into Mexico.
Cannabis pills?
And back out. Yeah, I made. That's been my thing now is with coconut oil and making my own. CBD.
Actually, psychoactive ones, or are you just talking CBD ones?
No, like it's THC.
So it works like an edible, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So is that how you're doing it now? Like you're not really smoking, you're using those?
Well, it's part of the tool chest. I mean, yeah, but I like it. I like it the best. And I have it, one pill is just kind of like you get kind of stoned, like you took 2 hits of weed or something like that, so it's a good workable, long lasting, like mellow high because it's got CBD.
You don't have like a milligram rating for each pill.
Well, no, because I don't know the weed. I don't know the source. Yeah. So
no, that makes sense. I love edibles. Edibles are great. I've recently switched from smoking weed to vaping, which is I did it years ago and I loved it. It's such a lighter, more functional high. I don't feel groggy in the morning. But getting a good hit of vape is hard without a really good vaporizer. So I had a little box one, but it got all messed up and dirty and it started working like crap. So I did finally just go and invest in a PAX, which is like, it's been awesome for portable, but I do need to get like a Volcano or some nice desktop vape.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the pills sounds awesome. I've never done pills. The closest I've done to pills I've done edibles. I found that we have lots of them in the stores here, the gummies and stuff. I found my like perfect dose of edibles is about 200 milligrams for like, that gets me like really stoned, but not too stoned. I'm like the perfect level right there. Other than that though, I tried for a short-lived weekend. I tried messing with RSO and holy crap, that'll just make you lose your mind. Or that's too much. Nobody needs that much.
What's RSO?
Rick Simpson oil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's for anyone that doesn't know, it comes in a syringe. It's basically like the most powerful thing you can get. It comes with a syringe, and you just dose it out of the syringe on like your finger, on food or whatever. The dosage for it is a grain of a grain of rice. That's basically how you dose it out. And I for 1 weekend I got some and it was good. And then I figured, Sunday, let me just finish it off. And I took, a pretty good daub off my finger. And oh my God, for one, I got just ridiculously high, but then I thought I was losing my mind for like a couple days. Like I can't remember exactly what was happening, but just I was forgetting stuff. I couldn't seem to think straight. And this is like on Tuesday. And I'm like, am I just losing my mind right now? And it just clicked. And I was like, oh my God, it's that oil. I did that oil on Sunday. And sure enough, come like Thursday, I was clear again. But yeah, that's like, I remember telling my buddy I bought some RSO and he's like, are you trying to tell me you have cancer? Because that's pretty much all that stuff is for.
Yeah, I think I heard Tommy Chong talking about it because he took it when he had prostate cancer. And this is Tommy fucking Chong, like the guy's, made of weed. And he said, that stuff is so strong, it makes you wonder if cancer's really that bad.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's just nobody needs that much. I mean,
Yeah.
for medical, but it's not a recreational thing. That stuff is just out of this world. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've gone deep before with dabs. I don't know if I should go into the full story on here, but I didn't smoke for 3 months. I was zero tolerance, completely nothing. And I was like, you know what? We're going to smoke this weekend. So I know you can't die from weed. So let's just see how deep this rabbit hole goes. And let's just start with some dabs. So I went and bought a gram of dabs. I broke it down into 5 little balls that I set out. And I think I made it to the 3rd one before my reality broke. And it was just, I've done too much of a lot of different things. I've messed up my dosages on mushrooms. I've taken or what I thought was too much LSD before and had like a rough trip, but it was really just me psychologically freaking myself out. Nothing was really going wrong. This was by far one of the worst and hardest experiences of my life, was simply too much dabs. Like, I can't explain going from zero tolerance to just these 3 massive dabs. And it was just, oh God, it was the worst night. Yeah. I'll save myself the embarrassment of the gory details, but yeah, it was a rough night for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, dude, weed, for as much media play as mushrooms and acid get for giving a bad trip, like, weed can do that too. THC.
Yeah. I had no idea weed was like, you could hallucinate. Like, I had vivid hallucinations, eyes open and eyes closed on weed, and I did not know that could happen.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the GIF where it's a picture and then it zooms in like through the picture into another picture and then keeps zooming into that picture into another picture, and it's like a living room, and you go through the window and then into the sprinkler and then keep going forever, and then eventually you end up back where you started and it just loops? That's what was happening to me in real life. I was sitting there, and I'll never forget looking at my buddy's pipe that I just used, sitting there and zooming into the pipe, going through like the shape of the pipe into just this crazy visuals and just all this madness. And then I would go through another window, and each one of these windows was shaped like his pipe. And then it would come back, and all of a sudden I'd go through the pipe and I'm back in the living room. I had about 15 seconds to tell everyone whatever I needed to tell them. Would you get me some water, whatever it was? And then I would look at the pipe again, and then I would zoom back in through the pipe and keep going. And it was, to this day, if I go over to his house, that pipe, looking at that pipe gives me anxiety. It's the shape of it. The shape of it makes me so uncomfortable.
Well, so yeah, so that's fractals, right? Like that's that term. Yeah, and that's a very common, well, at least eyes closed visual that I have with mushrooms and LSD is and it may not be a pipe, it may not be any shape or object that is real, but it's like that thing. You zoom in, and then you realize you're actually at some point zoom back out. You're zooming back in, and that's a very like big thing that I've noticed in everything. Like, it's kind of like that, the golden ratio, Fibonacci and all that, and then like that's been one of the weird crossovers from psychedelics and crypto, is that like the charts and everything that people fucking do all has fractals and Fibonacci, and
I mean, everything does. It sort of underlies our reality when you.
I know, yeah. It's like it's like the root code, whatever fractals are.
So, actually, speaking about reality, I just learned of the most amazing thing today, which I feel like it makes you question what is reality even. Have you ever heard of the Library of Babel?
I know the Tower of Babel, but no.
So this guy created a website. You can Google it, called the Library of Babel. And what it is think of it like this. A page is roughly 3,200 characters on one page. He took an algorithm that takes every letter in the alphabet, just lowercase, spaces, periods, and commas, and arranges them on a page of 3,200 characters and every possible combination they could ever exist on this page. And then it allows you to search it, which means that every page that has ever been written or ever will be written has existed on this website since the beginning of it. Yeah. And I can't even explain, like, you'll have to check it out sometime. Go there and just, you can type in what I'm saying right now, that whatever conversation you're having with someone at that moment, just start typing it in and hit search, and it will show you a page where that exact phrase is on there, that exact paragraph, that exact whatever you typed in is not only on there, but it's on there just coincidentally, randomly through a random jumbling of letters and numbers. And to wrap your head around how many different combinations there are for this, our entire known universe, everything we know about has 10 to the power of 80 atoms. So 10 high 80 is how many atoms we estimate are in our known universe. This the Library of Babel has 10 high 4,677 books, and each book has 410 pages in it. That's how many different iterations and jumblings of letters of 3,200 characters you can do with the with the English alphabet. And I mean, it's just to wrap your head around this. The fact one day you're going to be laying on your deathbed, and whatever you're going to say to your wife right there, the last thing to come out of your mouth before you die will have been on this website for the last 30 years.
Well,
like to wrap your head around this is just insane. And it,
right.
Nothing original can be written anymore because it'll be on there. A book that comes out 20 years from now, you can put in that page and it'll come up verbatim and it'll have been sitting there waiting for you to find it. Yeah. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, I know, because I'm going to be honest with you, like me trying to like wrap my head around that gives me the same feeling in my stomach as like when you're right about to go over like the hill of a roller coaster. So
go check it out. It's called the Library of Babel.
Yeah, definitely. We'll check it out and put a link. But since we're at 2 hours,
holy,
for a while, I like that's what I meant. I'm like that's a big dive. That like I said, gives me a little bit of nerves and queasing.
It's a good note to end it on. Leave everyone with something to go look up.
It definitely is. So, well, are you still doing the Instagram with your bus? If you want to plug that, and
still doing the Instagram. It's Instagram.com/othership-adventures. You can see us on there. I'm not into Instagram. I don't have my own personal account. I try to make it specifically just for our bus story. I think of it as a photo album that I'm going to be able to look back on one day. So it's all bus related. It's all bus stuff. So if you want to know where we're at with this build, if you want to know how it's going and what our plans are and stuff, it's Othership Adventures on Instagram.
Awesome, man. And, you also mentioned too, like you're looking to get into voiceover work and stuff like that. So if anyone digs the sultry sounds of Tyson,
if anyone needs someone to come on their podcast and do the "In a World will survive," or all this summer with all your favorite characters, any of that, I'm recording demos now and I'm trying to get in on this radio station. So anything, if anyone, I'll do it for free. I'm just looking to get my foot in the door. If you need any sort of narration, any sort of voiceover introduction for your podcast, you can get a hold of me on that Instagram. I guess that's the best way to do it. Otherwise you can reach out to Stan or Ruben or anyone on here and they'll let you know how to get a hold of me. But if anyone needs any sort of voice on anything, just let me know and I'd love to do it for completely free.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming back on, and I hope it's not another year till we have you on again.
Oh, I'd love to come on anytime. I have the best time talking with you guys, and hopefully I'll be a little more lively next time. It was a rough night, and I'm a little bit tired, but yeah, I'd love to do this with you guys more.
As always, thank you for listening to the Help Find the Others podcast. Please don't forget to check out our Discord server to connect with our growing community. The link to join can be found in the description. And if you feel like donating to our channel to help us grow, a link to our Patreon can also be found in the description, as well as some cryptocurrency wallet addresses. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast or have any questions about these topics, please email helpfindtheothers@protonmail.com. If you would like to leave a voicemail or a text message question for a future episode, Stan, what's that number again?
567-233-1335.
Okay, guys, thanks again. And until next time, let's help find the others.